Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, mes amis. The Montreal Canadiens are back at it with another win after losing against the Edmonton Oilers the other night in a game that I think all of us believe they deserve better in. They win one where maybe they didn't deserve to win in this one, but that's what happens when you stick to it and you have an absolute phenom on your team by the name of Ivan Demidov. Because let's face it, folks, this was more than just a comeback win for the Montreal Canadiens. This was a statement game from young Demidov, who has been getting better and better constantly throughout this short young season, and put his stamp on this one. 2 primary assists on the power play to get the Canadiens back in this one, and then an absolute ripper of a one-timer on a play that involved so many excellent plays, whether it was Matheson or Oliver Kapanen or Demidov himself or Alexandre Carrier, who had a really, really rough first period and then ended the game with the primary assist on the third and fourth goal in the third period. So fantastic game from him as well. But I think more than anything, we've got to talk about the rookies today, because as much as there have been improvements through the rest of the roster through moves like adding Noah Dobson, adding Zach Balduke, the rookies have been astonishingly good to start this season. Jakub Dobeš won his 5th straight game of the year, won 5 straight last year when he came out from the American Hockey League. First goaltender in NHL history, according to the broadcast on Sportsnet, on CBC, because it was Hockey Night in Canada, to win 5 straight games in their first 2 seasons. Now, as much as Demidov is probably going to win the Rookie of the Year this year, he's got to be like the number 1 contender. It's him or Schaefer. Dobeš is putting his name in the hat. Like, I thought he was a little bit rough to start this game. The rebounds were kind of all over the place, but the Canadiens were not helping him at all. And he's the reason why they were able to have a comeback in this game, because he kept the game close. He kept it from getting out of control. He gave them a chance to win, and that's all you really have to ask from a goaltender when you have the talent to get things done. And the Canadiens have that talent. So let's talk about the rookies. I'm going to say hi to some folks in the chat here. I see Moose just joined, Natalie Petty. Hi, Claire. Claire's here. Good evening. Piano Matt, Bernardo Sunier, Robert Rice in the chat. The Biglio. I don't know that one. That's a new one. DYT and Montreal MUFC. Welcome. Some familiar and new faces in the chat. So please, if you're here and you enjoy the show, make sure you like the stream. It really helps us out. It's very, very important for us to grow, to get some interaction from you in the chat, and to get some subscriptions, some likes, some shares, because we are slaves to the algorithm in the modern media world. We need your help, friends. So spread the word, help us find our audience that we had at SDPN. We're getting there bit by bit, but we do need help from our best folks in this, and that is you. All right, so we're going to talk Demidov. We're going to talk about Dobeš. I also want to talk about Kapanen, because we're going to talk about the rookies. In the second period, I want to talk about the Kirby Dach line. It was very, very strong tonight. I want to talk about some Lane Hutson record, not breaking, but record tying stuff. And then the top line, a little bit I want to touch on. Third period, I want to talk a little bit about the Patrick Laine injury. We'll probably breeze through that pretty quickly and then move on to the overtime where you can ask your questions. And I'm looking forward to that because you guys always give me some great questions to work with. I love talking to you. So let's start this out the best way we can possible. And that is to send you folks to one of our partners, Inchu Bijou, which is a fantastic local company, a small business owned by a small business entrepreneur named Astrid, who has done amazing things with this. Seriously, I can't say enough good things about this place. They're amazing, family friendly, and queer friendly. Everything that you want in a small business. They care about the community. They build their own community. So learn about Inchu Bijou and head over to inchubijou.com after the show ends and check out their wares. At the famous chateau at 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise lies one of Montreal's coolest secrets, a glamorous Gothic jewelry store owned and run by women. Inchu Bijou isn't just a business. They've built a community that supports bold creativity and expression. When I was first introduced to founder Astrid Episegomian's shop, I was floored by the detail, vision, and scale of what she's built from her own mind. I don't think anyone would call me goth, but I know an innovator when I see one. Along with building their own business, Inchu Bijou also hosts markets for vendors in their space called Marché Maleficarum, boosting their whole community. If you don't live in Montreal, explore inchubijou.com, where you'll find over 800 designs that range from affordable to bespoke. Check out Inchu Bijou right now, a Game Over partner from the beginning. Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. My name is Andrew Berkshire, and I'm your host tonight because I like talking about the Habs, and I like chatting with you folks. And frankly, this team is continually impressing me. As much as the start of this game, I saw some folks in the chat saying the start was not great. I agree. They were not on it to start this game. The first period was probably their worst start to a game this season. The only one comparable might have been like the first few minutes against the Leafs, but overall, probably their worst period of the season. When you factor in like quality of competition and all that too. Like the Vancouver Canucks are not very good. They're a very mid-tier team at best. They're like a bubble playoff team if things go well. And the Canadiens did not look interested in this game, which I think a lot of people were pretty worried about after the fire and brimstone following that Oilers game. You know, Marty calling out the refs, Cole Caulfield calling out the refs. I believe Gallagher also called out the refs, or at least defended Josh Anderson when he took his unsportsmanlike penalty, which he thought was BS, which agreed, Brendan. But at the end of the day, I think the takeaway from this game, we'll get to the rookies in a second, should be that the Canadiens are now at a point where they're good enough to rally in games that they don't deserve to win. And that should make everybody smile, because winning those games is how you get to the playoffs. You're not going to deserve to win every single game. You're going to have to win some that you should lose. And some of that comes from goaltending. Some of it comes from opportunistic scoring. Some of it comes from good bounces. They didn't get many of those tonight. They continue to get a lot of pinball goals against them, but things are working. All right, I'm going to look here in the chat to see if there's any people talking about Demidov and then bring that into the show as well. Robert Rice says, Ivan Demidov is for now the rookie scoring leader, jumped over the three-way tie of 7 points between Schaefer, Boyum, and Finney. 2 goals, 7 assists for the demigod. Yeah, demigod probably should be his name. I also really like the idea of calling him like a demi-dog, because he's got that dog in him, you know, and bringing out the Stranger Things reference. But overall, I am continually impressed by this kid. He has such amazing vision. And let's put this question to the chat. When is the next time that Ivan Demidov won't be on the first wave power play? No injury situation, like a decision by the coaching staff. Do you think that there is a time, any time in the near future, where this kid is not on the first wave power play after tonight? Because that was incredible. I think the first goal, you got to give a lot of credit for Nick Suzuki, the patience on that one, and, you know, staying in the right position, setting the play up to begin with. But both power play goals tonight are the result of an Ivan Demidov ridiculous pass, just heads up play all the time, never gives up on a play. It's crazy. He's so damn good. Yeah, Lance Purcell says never. Moose says when he retires. Bernardo says, I think Schaefer is the front runner, a number 1 D-man who's like point per game at 18. Yeah, I mean, we saw that with Hudson last year, right? Macklin Celebrini outpointed him, but I don't think there were very many people who thought that Lane Hudson wasn't going to win the Calder last year at a certain point. I mean, I said it very early in the season, probably about this early on Hyperdrive Hockey last year. So, yeah, it was predictable, I guess. I think Hudson, even though I was one of his biggest boosters, he blew my mind last year with how good he actually is. And the same thing I believe is going to happen with Demidov. So far, he doesn't have like the even strength play to like back up his power play production, but it's getting there. You can see things in his brain clicking game by game as he figures things out. It's really, really damn impressive. Get excited about Ivan Demidov. I saw Jared Book from EOTP said on Blue Sky during the game that Demidov is the most talented or most skilled, I think, player he said that he's ever seen in a Montreal Canadiens jersey. And he said forward specifically. So he said most skilled forward. And he said, miss me with the Alex Kovalev comparisons, saying that Demidov is like above and beyond Kovalev. I think it might be a little early to say that because like Kovalev was pretty damn good, but there's the potential to make Jared extraordinarily correct. And the fact is, we only got Kovalev in Montreal near, not necessarily the end of his career, but close to it. And then almost the end of it. He went to Ottawa and I think Florida at the end too, but I think Penguins as well at the trade deadline one year. But either way, getting distracted. Demidov has the potential to be like jersey retirement good in Montreal. And that's just so damn exciting. The fact that they have the Suzuki line already, like that line needs nothing to continue working. Like they are just that good. They are one of the best lines in the league. And then you have Demidov to build a whole other line around. And the fact is they also have the Doc Bolduc Gallagher line right now that I know is not put together because they're putting Gallagher with Evans and Anderson for now. But when that line has been together this season, they're at like 70% expected goals. I think higher than that. And they're dominating every category of like puck possession, control of the play, like scoring chances, all of that. It's all going in their favor in a like significant way. This team has so many good pieces already and more pieces on the way. This is the most exciting season I can remember as a Montreal Canadiens fan. Like, yes, I watched them raise a Stanley Cup in 1993, but I was a child. I didn't have any clue what was about to happen over the next couple of years, right? That team fell apart very quickly, and I didn't have the knowledge to understand how good they actually were. You know, people still underestimate that 93 team and think that it was all Patrick Waugh. It's just not the case. But this team has dynasty potential, for friends. Like, that's how good I think they actually can be. Piano Matt says, kid found Suzuki and Slavkovsky in traffic tonight. Yeah, Demidov he's crazy. It's so impressive. Claire says he'll only be off the power play for a family emergency. Agreed. Robert Rice says in his retirement season, he takes a step back to let the kids play. He's satisfied with the 3 cup rings. Let's not set the bar that low. 3? We could do better than that. Come on. We could do better than that. DYT says only if Marty decides to rip a crazy bong before the game. Only then. You know what, though? Even then, I think he'd still put Demidov out there. I think it'd be more the case of like, I'm just going to leave him out there the whole game. The high thoughts. Hudson had a lot of stumbles last year, but he got better with every game. Demidov was quiet to start the year. He looks dynamite right now. You're right, Matt. You know, whenever you're putting a kid into a position where a lot is expected of them, you kind of have to be willing to deal with like the mistakes. And that's one thing that this Montreal Canadiens team has done better than any team that I've seen since I've been covering the NHL in a professional capacity since 2012. Marty, I don't know why I said it like that. Marty St. Louis is an incredibly patient coach. And there's the notion, like people call him a player's coach, but I think it goes far beyond that because when media talks about a coach being a player's coach, they are usually talking about like they're like friendly with the players. They don't ream them out all the time. But I think it goes beyond that with Marty St. Louis. I think he knows how to put guys in positions to succeed and when guys need to be criticized and when they're their own worst critic and they need to be boosted. And his handling of young players has been really strong. And I know people will probably get upset about Jack Guy tonight being benched, but you know, what can you do? I don't think it was necessarily his fault, even though it was a bad penalty, but we'll get there. Rod Langway Fan Club says this forward group is Bo Horvat away from being absolutely terrifying. People are liking the Bo Horvat thing. Hey, I've seen a few people mention Bo Horvat. I don't know if he's a fit for the team. Would be nice to have a little bit more scoring, though. Piano Matt says Kovalev playing in this era of hockey would be pretty dominant. I totally agree. Kovalev in an era of hockey where like you can't hook and hold as much. Yeah, very good. Moose, and how about that one-timer? He's got a shot, too. Was that ever a ripper? Holy man. I didn't see it coming. I thought he would get a shot off, but not like blast it right inside the top corner there. Like that was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Montreal MUFC says Mike Tomlin gets roasted by urinating tree for being a player's coach. Well, yeah, I don't know about football. I can't tell you that. Robert Rice says when you think about the future, it gets more absurd when you weigh how Hage is being Hage being one of the best in the NCAA right now. Zarovsky somehow mirroring Demidov's season in the KHL. Yeah. Bernardo Saunier brings up Kadri as a possibility. Yeah, I mean, he's going to definitely play his 1,000th game in Calgary, but he's a possibility at the trade deadline. Habs fan growing up, so that always helps. Moose says, Marty seems like he has good emotional intelligence. Yes. And I've been saying this since he was hired, that the way he speaks about his players and his team, it is very much reminiscent of like modern gentle parenting techniques. And I feel like he's been very good at getting results because punishment doesn't work, folks. Like the whole benching a player to make them learn a lesson, that's not it. It doesn't actually make them better. It just makes them embarrassed. When a guy makes a mistake, they know. They know. Like Jack Guy tonight, I don't think he was benched because he needed to be benched to learn a lesson. I think he was benched because he took 2 dumb penalties and he was a liability in a game where the Canadiens were playing very, very poorly. All right. I do want to talk about Dobesh because I remember when he came up last year, and I don't watch the American Hockey League that much. I just don't have the time, but I talk to folks who do, like Robert here in the chat, and they were saying Dobesh was like very, very good. And then he came into the NHL and he was really solid and also plays a very entertaining style, which I personally enjoy. But I didn't think that he had like steal the starting job potential. And maybe Montembeault didn't either. But that's changed real quick this year. And I don't think anybody should expect Dobesh's play at this level to continue for too long, but he has had a banger start to the season, including preseason, and it's been incredibly important for the Montreal Canadiens because Montembeault has not had a great start to the season. I don't think most of it has been his fault. There have been a few goals for sure that were not good. I think the game that he took like responsibility for, that was definitely a game where he was at fault more than anybody else for them losing. But overall, I find a lot of the goals going against him are pinball goals. And we've seen good goaltenders get burned by stuff like that over small sample sizes. Sometimes puck luck just piles up against you in a short time. And my worry for Montembeault is that he just keeps his confidence. And for most players, I think I'd be a little bit more worried than I am for Monty because he's lived through much worse than this. He played on the bad version of the Montreal Canadiens, and he stayed through that and was good through that. So he'll recover. It might take some time, but for now, riding Dobesh is not a bad idea. And I'm glad that Marty and this team have the confidence to do that with a young goaltender, even with Monty being like the established guy, because not all coaches are willing to make that kind of decision. It's a tough one. There's a possibility of hurting some feelings. And the fact that he's willing to do that, just really, really, really impressive. Let's see here in the chat. Trizek says, gotta ride the hot goalie. Habs are done losing on purpose. Yep. Marc Ciancara says, Je suis non bien. Yeah. Sorry, buddy. Habs win tonight. It must have been a tough one, to blow the 2-0 lead and how dominant the Canucks were in the first period. Gotta be a little bit of a tough sell on that one. Lance Purcell says, Monty has had bad luck this season. He'll rebound. Totally. I also want to talk about Oliver Kapanen because he's kind of undersung in this group of rookies that have broken in this year. He's the least flashy of the three, but he's been really important to this team. And I think if you look at that, the Demidov goal, the one-timer, that goal happened because Oliver Kapanen stepped up at the offensive blue line and prevented a clear from the Vancouver Canucks. And it was very close. It was just on the line. And Demidov would have been offside if he was, a little bit further out. He kept the puck in, put it deep, and I believe he ended up getting an assist on it too because he was who Matheson was like tackled from behind along the boards behind the net and just out-battled his opponent and sent the puck back along the boards up to Kapanen, who put it up to Carrier, who found Demidov for the one-timer. And like, it's those little plays that keep plays alive from Oliver Kapanen that has made that line function at even strength, I think. His ability to turn over pucks in stride and create transition plays the other way has been really damn impressive this season. And I think 2 of his 4 goals have been created directly off of his turnovers, his takeaways from other teams. So that's the kind of stuff you want to see. And I was chatting with, I think it was Brian Wild on Blue Sky a few days ago, that he was saying that like Kapanen has the potential, if he sticks with Demidov, to be kind of like the Lehkonen on that line. And I like that comparison. I don't think he's, at this point anyway, got the defensive chops that Lehkonen has, but I look at what that line could be long term. And I think Newhook, as much as he's had a very, very good start to the season, like best you could ever ask for from Alex Newhook, I think he's a bit of a placeholder for Michael Hayes. And I think it's going to be Demidov and Kapanen around Hayes in a year or two. And that's going to be a damn fun line. And, down the line, as like Suzuki, Caulfield start to get a little bit older, maybe that's the first line. You don't know. I think this is what's so exciting about this team is that they're building these waves of players breaking in that gives them a much more extended competitive window. It's the kind of thing that a team like the Maple Leafs failed to do because they tried to go too fast. They bottomed out, got Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and kind of like dusted off their hands and said, we're done. It's good. We can be a competitive team now. And they had the core four, right? Bringing in Tavares, but they never had the organizational depth to support those players. The Canadiens don't have Matthews, but they have a whole hell of a lot of guys of William Nylander's caliber, we'll say. And you add that to a lot of organizational depth, and you become a team that's very, very difficult to play against. Very, very difficult to win 4 out of 7 games. And that's the kind of thing that I think this management group has been exceptional at putting together. And I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about what this team can be. All right. Let's shift gears. We'll talk about this game a little bit and why it was so off the rails at the beginning and what allowed the Canadiens to come back in a moment. But first, we got to tell you about our partner, Le Saint Motel, located at the same address as Inchu Bijou. They are partner organizations. If you go to Inchu, you just go right through a door in the side of their place and you're right in Saint Motel. So let's check out that and we'll see you on the flip side. While you're browsing Inchu Bijou's goth shop, head next door and discover Montreal's most unique selfie studio. Whether you're looking to take some banger pics of your Halloween costume or cosplay, or you want to make some memories with friends, Le Saint Motel has you covered. Experience their bombastic decors that are always changing, hop in the ball pit, and take advantage of their extensive and flexible on-site lighting. Head to lesaintmotel.com to book your time in the studio, book private time where you and your friends will be the only ones allowed in, or book the space for an event. The dedicated, caring staff will make sure that you have a good time. I do have one warning for you before you book. If you have kids, they won't want to leave. Whether you're at Le Saint Motel or Inchu Bijou, tell them Game Over sent you. Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I am your host, Andrew Berkshire. Tonight, please smash like on the stream if you're here with us and enjoying the show. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe because that really helps out. And we want to continue growing because we have an opportunity here to build something special. And I think that's the thing that keeps me going more than anything is I look at the state of hockey media and I just shake my head at how bad it is. This is one place where you will never be drowned in ads for betting. You will never see AI slop on the Game Over Network. You will see real people, young people breaking into the industry, giving you great analysis and building a community that's worth staying a part of. Honestly, hanging out with you folks in the chat, that's the best part of this gig. All right, I'm going to check in on the chat quickly before we talk about the game. I see Propagandi 900. The goaltender situation is bad at this stage of a rebuild. It's a good thing to see, really. Yeah, I agree. Rod Langway fan club. Kapanen will settle in as a reliable bottom six forward. I'm not sold on his offensive upside, but he's a smart player with decent tools. I think that's fair enough. I think what makes Kapanen have potential to move beyond the bottom six is just he's one of those guys that connects lines, right? Like Lehkonen, you look at him and his production in the NHL, you probably don't think first line forward, but you put him next to Nathan MacKinnon and all of a sudden Nathan MacKinnon's even better, which has value. Brendan Gallagher, right? Not the biggest point producer in the NHL, but you put him on any line and that line is better. Those players who get things done, the little stuff, are just as important as the goal scorers. It's one of those things that folks don't talk about enough is there's different kinds of players that have different purposes. You know, we saw folks kind of dunking on Uri Slafkovsky recently because I think it was Logan Cooley had a hat trick. And look at Logan Cooley's going to outpoint Slafkovsky. No one cares. Like in Montreal, if you're watching games, game in and out, nobody's worried about Uri Slafkovsky this year. He's been absolutely dominant, and that top line is incredible. So points aren't everything. Claire says, why the new setup? It's not a permanent thing. This is a temporary thing while my office is under construction. I'm trying to change things a little bit, make it work a little bit better, make things look a little bit better. But this is a temporary thing where I'm just in my living room for now. So I will probably be back in the studio another week or so. But for now, I apologize. You got to look at my couch instead of awesome art from our friend. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name all of a sudden. Andrew Murray, I think. Dave Murray, sorry. DaveMurrayIllustration.com. He's the one who made the art in behind my usual studio over there. And he also made the overlays here, although Maud Skoblocker has put her finishing touches on them as well. So give her some love. She's from Game Over Ottawa. All right. This game was interesting in a lot of ways. The first period was not, but how they got out of that rut was interesting to me. I don't believe they put up any points on the board tonight, but the Kirby Dach, Zach Bolduc, Joe Veleno line is what turned this game around for the Montreal Canadiens. At the end of the first period, most of the second period, they were the best line from the Habs. Like, it wasn't even close. They were the only line that was generating offensive zone pressure. They were the only line that was not getting beaten in defensively. They were creating, and they continued to generate momentum until the team drew a power play and got on the board. I was really impressed with them, and I think the Dach-Bolduc chemistry is very real and gives the Canadiens an opportunity to be a much better team. Piano Matt says Dach was way better tonight. He struggled on Thursday. Yeah, that first game back, it was not great. But, I mean, the rest of the team was so good, you kind of don't notice it, right? Zizik says, sure, Andrew, it definitely had nothing to do with wanting to sit on the comfy couch. You know, maybe. One thing that does bother me about the other setup is the computer chair. It's just too squeaky. I don't like having the squeaky computer chair. But we'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. We'll fix it. We'll make it better. It's only going to get better. Trzek says Habs were Lieutenant Dan for 2 periods, no legs. I thought they were better in the second, especially like the back half of the second. But yeah, it took them a while to get in this one. Some games are like that. You know, you're never going to have a team that's excellent every single game. How are we feeling about Kirby Dach, folks? You feeling like a Bolduc did get an assist on Matheson's goal? You're right. I meant the line itself. I think that was it a power play one? No, maybe you're right. Yeah. Either way, that Matheson goal was great too. Dach did the flyby in front, right? He did the last minute screen as Matheson came across, drifting left and then shot back against the grain into the top corner with a wrist shot. Very EA Sports cheat code. I love that move when I need to score a goal. So yeah, you're right. They did get a point, but most importantly, I thought was not necessarily the goals from them. It was the play. And it was just showing the rest of the lineup that they could get in the game. I think they dragged them a little bit back into the game. And then once the top line woke up, you know, that's all she wrote for the Vancouver Canucks. It's one of those situations where as much as you're never going to have the best performance of a team every single game, but the Canadiens, when they wake up and start playing like they're able to, they're continually showing this year that they're better than a lot of teams. And that wasn't the case very recently. The rise of this team is really incredible. All right, I want to talk about Lane Hutson as well, because I saw it mentioned, it was on Blue Sky, I think. Hutson tied the record, or the record for second fastest defenseman in NHL history, tied with Larry Murphy, and I believe there was some Quinn Hughes, who was playing tonight and who was excellent tonight, to second fastest to 70 assists in NHL history ever among defensemen. Remember earlier in the season when people said something was wrong with him? Yeah, I don't think there was. I think Lane's just fine, and he's going to continue to be just fine and continue to get better. Moose says Dach has good and bad moments, same as last year. I'm still waiting to see consistency in either direction to make any judgment. You know, I don't agree with you on that one. I think last year Dach played nervous and he wasn't really involved. he was trying to, like find his legs and find his confidence. He was not a confident player this year or last year. So this year's a different story. Doc is so much more involved, especially around the boards. He's creative with the puck, entering the zone, driving towards the net. He has a lot more, how would you put it? Gumption? We'll use a real old word. I feel like he just insists upon himself a little bit more this year. He's got the confidence to push things a little bit further and take some more risks, and it hasn't hurt him, and it's benefited. He's not producing a huge amount of points or anything, but I think he's been quite good. Steven LaRusick says Doc's been good since he's been back. Even the game in Edmonton, he was good up until he got dragged down in front of the ref, and the ref just told him to get up as he wasn't making a call. Yeah, the refs were pretty rough in Edmonton, unfortunately. Rod Langway Fan Club says Doc needs to stay healthy and engaged. The tools are there, but between injuries and periods where he plays a sleepy game, I'm not convinced he is a long-term piece. Yeah, fair enough. I think he has the potential to be a long-term piece, but he has to prove it. And so far this season, pretty good. Adam7777 says Hudson is now sitting at second in points for a defenseman behind Makar by 1 point. Dude's going to win a Norris at some point in his career. Yes, he will 100% win a Norris at some point in his career. And I have to say, I was joking with Kay a few days ago that I've been... Jeez, my shirt's pulling up. Stomach showing. I've been noticing a lot of overrated lists on like TikToks and Instagrams and stuff, and they've been listing a lot of Habs on those, like top 5 most overrated players, and it's like Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson, and a lot of them are like, oh, Habs fans, I can't handle them. They're so annoying. I was like, folks, get ready. Because if you think Habs fans are annoying now, this is just the beginning. This is not their final form. It's not even close. They are going to get so obnoxious. You will not know what to do with yourself. You think they're loud about Lane Hudson? Wait until Ivan Demidov has like an 85-point season. Because that's happening. Wait till he has a 100-point season. We're never going to shut up. We're going to be so annoying. Can you even imagine once like they win a couple playoff series? They haven't even won a playoff series. And this isn't like Toronto. We know it's going to happen sooner than later because they're not chokers. We've got gamers on this team. No Austin Matthews is a great player. Not in the playoffs, though. He's only a good player in the playoffs, and that's not good enough. When your best players aren't difference makers in the biggest moments, it's hard to build a winning team when you don't have a lot of depth. The Canadiens have depth, and their best players have already proven themselves in big moments. That's crazy. Like, it's so good. Moose says, I will be insufferable. Trizek says, leave the tummy display for the premium Game Over stream. Yeah, you're right. We threatened that last year. If there was enough people who wanted it, we'd do a shirtless stream. Me and Mark just flabby everywhere. Although, you know what? I got back. Today was my first day sparring in like 3 months, and that felt good. It felt real good. Everyone needs to take a punch in the face once in a while. It's good for you. All right. The other thing I want to talk about in this one was the top line, because I think we should touch on that. It wasn't a good start for them, but once again, when they get going, they're really hard to stop. And those three seem to thrive on creating extended offensive zone possessions, but sometimes when another line has one and they jump on, it's like they can smell blood in the water, and it's like a whole new level. Like they just take it up a notch. When they're able to get out there after another line has had a good shift, it's unbelievable what they're able to accomplish. They just build on momentum in a way that very few lines in the NHL do. And I don't know, folks, how you're feeling about that top line, but it's pretty impressive. It's pretty damn impressive. I don't know which line in the NHL I would trade 1-for-1 for that one. You could take Connor McDavid, but is Connor McDavid's line better? I don't know. I just don't know. I think Suzuki is so versatile at this point, and Cole Caulfield has ascended to such an extreme degree that it's very difficult to count them out any way, shape, or form. And then you add Uri Slavkovsky realizing that he's the biggest dude all of a sudden. There was a few times tonight where he was laying the stick on people. And for me, as much as I don't want him to take penalties, I find Slavkovsky has been too kind to a lot of folks in the NHL his first 3 years in the league. And there have been games where big boy Slav has shown up, but this season we've seen it consistently. And I like him when he's mean. I think when he's got that mean streak going, teams have to play afraid because he is a big dude. He is not easy to toss around. And if he gets mad, I wouldn't want to see that if I was an opponent. Rod Leg, my fan club says Slav needs to keep using his size like he has recently. I just hope we don't see any more bad calls where he's penalized for being stronger than the D he out muscles. Well, he's going to get a lot of those because already I feel he's quite over penalized, and that happens to Xhekaj too. So it's something the Canadiens have to be aware of, but maybe they need to be better on the penalty kill. That's the big thing. All right, let's talk about Patrik Laine here for the third period. I'm going to switch over in a second. But before we do, let's talk about, let's talk about Game Over Network and our Patreon, which you can find. There's a link in the description for this video or this podcast if you're listening on the podcast side. There's also on our YouTube page and I believe our website, thegameovernetwork.com, where you can find our Patreon and support us. We've got some perks there. The Patreon is going to be run by Mike from Game Over Ottawa. And it's not crazy so far, but we're getting bigger and there's going to be some cool stuff there. We're going to do some games. We're going to do some stuff just for our patrons. And as things get figured out through the course of the season, I'm planning on doing some watch-alongs as well. It's just difficult to do with two young kids because I also don't want them on the stream because, number one, you can't monetize when children are on the screen. And number two, my kids are at an age now where I don't necessarily want them like on the internet everywhere. So I have to like be careful of when I'm able to do the watch along streams because it's pretty early in the day, starting at 7. So I want to do that. But, and when we do that, the patrons are going to be able to join in voice chat on the Discord. So head on over to the Patreon, check us out. If you can throw us a couple bucks, it helps a lot. If you can throw us more than that, well, that's even better. And we really appreciate it. And if you can't, we understand totally. And the most that you can do for us is give us your watch time and your shares and your likes and your subscriptions, because that's what really matters. And that's what's going to help us grow, especially if you tell your friends about us. All right. Patrik Laine out for 3 to 4 months. This is the bad news for tonight. And it is pretty rough because, man, he just came back. The injury last year really held him up. I think we didn't see the Patrik Laine that we expected for most of the season, even though he was able to score on the power play. And then this year in preseason, he looked real good, and the season started and he looked rough. He had a couple games where he looked like he was getting his feet under him a little bit, and then all of a sudden back to square one. And on the one hand, I'm glad that it was an injury, because if he'd just stopped playing well out of nowhere, that's a bigger concern for Patrik Laine, especially with all the talk over the summer and coming into this season about how he fell back in love with hockey playing with the Canadiens last year. So hopefully he recovers well from this surgery and he's back in time to help the Canadiens make their playoff push and such and be a factor in the playoffs. But man, what a tough situation for that guy. I feel so bad for him. He's been through so much, and this team that has so much promise, losing him right away, it does suck. It sucks for him, I think, more than the roster, like the team itself, because he's kind of like a specialty bonus player in a lot of ways. But the fact is that it's just tough to get over that kind of mental hurdle, getting injured and having to sit out again. It just sucks. All right, let's check in on the chat here. Trinka says, do we think Patrik Laine is just getting the surgery he should have gotten last year? Because I do. No, is what I've heard is he's got abdominal surgery, and last year it was the knee that was the issue. Although I don't know if he had an abdominal injury last year that they didn't really talk about and that was bothering him. He could have, but I don't think so. I think with how Laine was playing down the stretch last year, they probably would have sat him out if he had a significant injury, or maybe he had a nagging injury that got worse this year. It's hard to know. That's the annoying thing about pro sports is they're so paranoid about, other teams targeting their guys that they don't really give us a lot of information about injuries and stuff. And I get it, but it would be nice to know. Rod Langway Fan Club says, I'm sad for Laine the human, but I'm not sure how much of a loss Laine the player will be. He didn't have the pace to keep up with this team. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, I like Patrick Laine the person. I like Patrick Laine the player as well. But since he was acquired by the Canadiens and, started injured that first year last year, there's never been a point where he's had a spot. We came into last year, Marty established 3 good lines. They had the top line in the Suzuki line. They had the Dvorak line that I think blew everybody's mind last year, including my own. I didn't think there was any chance they would be able to build a line around Christian Dvorak that was that good. And then they had the Evans line. So you had like a first line and 2 good third lines, but no second line. And there was no fit for Line A. This year, same thing. They build 3 lines that look functional, and then Line A is on the leftover line. And that's just a tough way to be. But the fact is, when Marty is building the roster, he has to think about putting as many players as he can in the best position possible to get the most out of the collective to make the team the best situation or the best they possibly can be. And Line A has not put himself in a position where he is a guy that needs to be prioritized. He hasn't been good enough for other players to be kicked out of their slots. That's, on him. It's on the injuries, and it sucks, but it's just the reality. He is kind of a specialty player. Trinka says, it's really nice that losing Laine doesn't affect the Habs season the way it did last year. It was such a blow last year. Yeah, I think it was the mental side of it last year, right? Losing Laine and Reinbacher right off the bat. They were so excited to be, quote unquote, in the mix. This year is just a different story with the additions of Dobson, Demidov, Kapanen, Bolduc, Dobesh. There's so many pieces on this team that are working functionally well or better that they're just at a totally different level. It's a totally different season than last year. Last year, these Canadiens had to figure out what it was like to be in the mix and then to have their own destiny in their hands at the end of the year, trying to make the playoffs and watching it slip through their fingers, finally getting it. I don't think this team this year would have an issue with at the end of the season, it's slipping through their fingers. They're so much more confident. And it's games like this that I think reinforce that confidence in a way that they can come out of the gate sloppy and behind a step and still fight their way back in and win over the course of 60 minutes. And that's just damn impressive. It's damn impressive. Robert Rice says, Laine's injury pattern makes me think he's unfortunately a guy with exceptional talent, but his body can't quite handle the NHL. It gets worse as he gets older and accumulates damage. Yeah, I always wonder about that kind of stuff. People have talked about Kirby Dach in the same way, about injury prone. And it's always tough to know whether a guy is injury prone or just pretty damn unlucky. If it's a bunch of different injuries, is that indicative of being injury prone? Or if it's the same kind of injury, like Dach had multiple knee injuries, is that injury prone? Was Andrei Markov injury prone when he had that run of he blew out his knee 3 or 4 times, the same knee twice and then the other knee once. And then he had the cut across the top of the tendons on his foot from colliding with Price in the net. Sometimes things happen in a short period of time that make you think one way, but it's more random variance than anything. And then you have guys like Sami Salo, who Vancouver fans know and love, who had the weirdest string of injuries that you could ever imagine, including, I believe, being bit by a snake once and missed NHL games because of that. So there's all sorts of things. At least it's not Dustin Penner missing time from eating pancakes and throwing out his back. That was probably the funniest NHL injury that I've ever heard of. Robert Rice says, Nick Suzuki is the only top 30 scorer in the NHL right now whose shooting percentage is under 10. Imagine what happens when a few more go in. Yeah, and that's going to happen. Suzuki's only 2 goals this year have been empty net tap-ins from Demidov, so he'll find a way. He's so damn talented. Rod Legway Fan Club says, Bolduc is the sniper we needed. He can skate, forecheck, and will continue to improve. Yeah, I think Bolduc, in a lot of ways, is like Gallagher's successor. He's like a little bit more skilled. He's got unbelievable hand-eye coordination. I noticed that a lot tonight. Like a lot of bouncing pucks where Bolduc just fought them down and created plays out of them. And then he's got that killer wrist shot, snapshot combo it's just hard to stop. He's got a heavy, heavy shot. I really like the guy. Rod Lang, my fan club, says Gallagher had a terrible injury run but has been healthy in recent seasons. Yeah, sometimes it's just your body rejects everything for a while and eventually you figure it out. Sometimes it's you have to train differently. Right? Sometimes you have to figure that out yourself. That's been one of the things that I don't know if it's been talked about in public or if it's just more like, you know, hockey media talks to each other and then doesn't tell people all the good stuff. But PK Subban, the end of his career, I personally believe, and this is a belief, not a fact, an opinion, that the way that he trained was a big contributor to why his career was so short and why his back injury never really worked itself out after he collided with Alexei Emelin in Montreal in his last game. I look at the way that he trained in the offseason, and I don't think he trained smart. I think he trained for like brute strength, which I get as a smaller defenseman that he needs to be stocky and able to withstand the rigors of the NHL. But I think he did exercises at weights that were not good for his body and for playing in the NHL, and that really hurt him long term. I know that there were some people who wanted to work with him, I believe in New Jersey after he left Nashville to kind of like get him back to what he was, and it just wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to move away from the people that he was training with in the summer. They're like family friends. So it was one of those things where you're not going to win that argument. You know, it's an emotional one, not a rational one. So I think that how players train their bodies matters a lot. And having now gone through the rigors of some athletic style training and being injured and working through it and finding different ways to attack, you know, there's a lot of different ways to train, and not everything works the same for everybody. And you have to find a way to keep yourself healthy, and health is a skill to an extent, but sometimes you get real bad luck too. Stephen LaRussick says, any concerns about the Habs not being able to get easy wins? Every game is tight till the final whistle. I'm not too concerned about that. I think every game is a learning experience and you slot it away in the back of your mind when you get to the playoffs. And I think it's important to win these tight games. Like, it'd be great to pile up some goals for sure. They'll get those wins, but this is a team that's still building, and I'm not concerned about how they're winning right now. I think if they were always doing the comeback wins like last year, then it's a little bit like, maybe they should like defend some leads too, but they've had a good mix of, you know, the comeback wins or defending leads at the end. It's been pretty good. I think it's overall a pretty good season in terms of like the vibes are strong. All right, let's shift gears to the overtime period where you guys can ask questions, because that's always a fun thing to do. And when we get to that, throw some questions in the chat for me, folks, because I want to read your questions and get back to you. Now, before we take questions from the chat, I got to tell y'all that at thegameovernetwork.com, we've got some pretty cool merch, and we're going to put some more stuff in the store here soon. I've got some designs kicking around in my old head that I think y'all will really like. But before we get to the questions, I had a question for you. We mentioned it the last time I was on, but I've been talking up the St. Motel's ball pit, and I'm going to talk to Astrid probably this week. How funny would it be if we hosted a show from inside the ball pit? Because I think it would be really fun. I think we could do a show from inside the ball pit and just have fun and screw around. And yeah, maybe we'll pick a game against a team that we don't care about that much. Trinka says, hey, Andrew, my question is, how is Mark? And can you tell him that we miss him? I will text him right now, Trinka, that you specifically wanted to say that you miss him. I talk to Mark all the time. He is doing well. He is still having issues with sleep, and his job requires him to do work after the game. So add that to hosting one of these shows. And I think I've told you guys before, but just for me, and I know Kay has had the same experience, Mark has had the same experience. I think all of our hosts kind of feel it is once you're done hosting this show, it's hard to just like calm down and go to sleep. Like it's genuinely fun. Like we're in here, we're talking to our friends about the Habs that we love. We're hyped up because of the game. Like if I'm not careful, I can be up until 3 a.m. after this because I'm like buzzing with excitement. And especially now that the team is actually good, it's tough. And when you have trouble sleeping like Mark has, it's tough. So I'm going to text Mark right now. Trinka says they miss you and hope you're well. There we go. If he texts back during the show, I'll let you know, but he might not because he's working. All right. Let's see if there's other questions here. Claire says hi to, yeah, I'll say it also from Claire. I'll take Claire in the whole chat. There we go, folks. All right, let's see if we got some questions. Sorry about that. Just the silence on stream. Robert Rice says, do you have an updated prediction on Montreal's finish? My friend and I set 45 wins as a reasonable finish. Starting to wonder if they can push past that. I don't have a wins prediction, but before this season started, I was on record saying I think it's going to be a boom or bust season where there's a high potential for making the playoffs, but also a high potential for losing it. Or not losing it, missing the playoffs. I no longer believe that, so I'd say that there will be a update to my prediction. I don't think it's boom or bust. I think it's like bare minimum they're making the playoffs this year. This team is significantly more talented than I expected, and I think that we're going to see over the course of the 82-game season that there's not going to be a period of time where we're worried that they're not going to make the playoffs. They might have low lows during the season, but we've already seen enough through 10 games to know, based on last year and the progression of this team over the last several years, where this team is going. And that's up. You know, injuries can kill you, but cross your fingers, knock on wood and such. If they don't, this team has like real boom potential. Like, I would not be surprised, especially if they add at the deadline, to see this Canadiens team push a few rounds deep in the playoffs. That's how good that I think that they can be. They are very, very good. Piano Matt says, oh, that's too bad. Hope that improves for Mark. Agreed. He'll be okay. Don't worry. We're taking care of Mark. Habs fan in New Jersey. Welcome. MUFC. I think Kane's penalty was only 2 minutes and no supplementary discipline. Oh, yeah. That was an interesting one, eh? The cross-check in the numbers, and he's like, what? What for? So funny. I saw somebody saying that Veleno got lucky to not get called for the hit but from behind on Pettersson later in the game. Totally agree, but there's probably a little bit different like criteria for like a cross-check to the numbers and to the boards versus like a little push, and it looked like a pretty rough one on Pettersson, honestly, but not quite the same. But yeah, he did get lucky. Although Veleno's first penalty in this game was straight up BS. Like, Joseph felt him and his legs went out from under him with a little stick. It was nothing. Moose says, if they re-sign Matheson and Reinbach or Engstrom make their case for a roster spot, it could force a tough decision on Arbor. Ooh, are we going to have the Arbor-Xhekaj discussion this early in the season? What I will say about Arbor-Xhekaj is he is such a unique individual that he has all the control right now. It's in his hands. He can solidify himself on that third pair as the guy who's like the solid guy on the third pair that you build that third pair around, because he's such a unique talent who has, you know, assets that very few people in this league have, but he's not making the case so far. Part of it, I think, is he gets a raw deal from the refs because he's Arbor-Xhekaj, but he's got to be a little bit better at managing pucks in tight and not getting lost when the gets passed around a little bit. Like, he's got to be a better decision maker. He's got to be a little bit more attention to detail in the defensive zone. He's got things to work on. And every time it seems like Xhekaj is solidified on this roster, it seems like there's something that goes wrong for him. And maybe that's just how the career will go, that he'll never quite tap into the player that he can be inside. I still believe in the guy, but he has a bit of an uphill battle. And like, frankly, like, I don't think Jayden Struble is necessarily a better player overall than Arber Xhekaj, but his puck skills at this stage are better. And that's why he's with Lane Hutson and Arber Xhekaj is not. And that's why he looked good tonight and Arber Xhekaj did not. He's got to work on the hand-eye coordination and tracking the puck a little bit better, attention to detail, all that kind of little stuff. He's come a long, long way since he was a rookie. But we haven't seen the best of Arber Xhekaj yet. And I understand that people might be impatient to get there, but I think the Canadiens are very patient with him. And I think this has been a big like misunderstanding between media and the fan base and the Canadiens in like how they value Arber Xhekaj. There's always been a lot of consternation about like Marty doesn't like him or the Canadiens don't think that he's as good as he is, such and such. Like when he got sent to the AHL a few years ago, I really think they've been slow rolling him because they think he can be the kind of third pairing defenseman that is incredibly important when it comes to the playoffs and very difficult for teams to counter. They see the potential in him. They're trying to wring it out, but it hasn't quite got there yet. I don't think they're giving up anytime soon. I think they see a lot in him, but he's got to make a bit of a statement over the next couple of games here because eventually Caden Gooley's going to be back, or one of those young kids from the AHL are going to knock on the door. And right now, Arber Xhekaj has not made the case that he should stay in the lineup over Jayden Struble. So it's going to be tough. Moose says, if he can become a Radko Gudas, that would be great. Yeah, that's basically what you're looking for, right? Radko Gudas that's a little bit more of a fighter, I guess. Radko Gudas doesn't fight as much, but still. As Zizek says, it's almost like the team is improving faster than Arber is improving. Both are improving, but one is outpacing the other. Man, that is a brilliant comment. I wish I said that. That is so true. That is exactly how it feels. Is that Arber has kind of been passed a little bit by the pace of the improvement of the Montreal Canadiens. And that sucks for him, but it's good for the Montreal Canadiens long term. And I think the fact that Florian is also knocking at the door is something that's going to keep Arber Xhekaj on this roster. I think that the two of them together in the preseason was extraordinarily fun. And I think the Canadiens do want to have that edge to them because they have those smaller players. And you know, you saw Caulfield get rammed from behind tonight and it looked pretty rough. Hudson has been targeted like crazy this season, like unbelievable. And the amount of calls that should be called but aren't is tough to watch. Rod Legway Fan Club says Struble has a higher floor, but Xhekaj has a higher ceiling. Totally agree. I also think management will be patient. Yep, I am totally with you. Robert Rice says Habs front office definitely want Xhekaj as a key playoff guy. If we're going to have a playoff series against Florida, we need to be able to match the physical power. Yeah. And once like Florian Xhekaj, who I was very cagey on when they drafted him, like I was like, I don't know. Once I saw him play a little bit, I was very, very impressed. And now, after a year in the American Hockey League, and where he really, really played well, and played well in preseason as well, I think he's going to be an NHLer, folks. I think eventually we're going to have a Bash Brothers situation here in Montreal. And once that happens, these Canadiens are going to be very difficult. Very difficult. Very annoying to play against as well. Piano Matt says, yeah, tonight I learned that grabbing a player and tackling to the ice isn't a penalty. Yeah, that was on Hudson, right? Sherwood, 44 on Vancouver. He was all over the place tonight. He had some good plays, great on the penalty kill for a while, but also like crazy hits behind the play and such. Not sure I like that guy. Montreal MUFC says Xhekaj is like Radko Gudas. He may go overboard, but he's vital in changing the culture within the team. Gudas did it in Florida, even though he didn't win a cup. Could be right about that. I mean, you look at how much Lane Hutson appreciates Arbor Xhekaj, right? And it's not a situation like in the 90s and the 80s where the enforcer was out there just like to fight and get 3 minutes of ice time and not do anything else. Arbor Xhekaj is a regular player. I think the other thing to keep in mind with Xhekaj is the quality of the Montreal Canadiens defense has increased so significantly over the last 2 years that he might look worse by comparison, but also still be better. Like Lane Hutson joining. Now Noah Dobson. Caden Gooley's taken a step. Alexandre Carrier was acquired last year. The amount of improvement on that blue line around Xhekaj has been incredible, but he hasn't been the beneficiary of it. Now, he should benefit from playing with Carrier. It hasn't worked out that way so far. I'm going to have to look at what's going on with the two of them and why they don't seem to have much chemistry. There's got to be something there. Maybe it's, we'll work out more down the line, but it hasn't been it so far, even though they should be much better than they are together. So we'll take a look at that. But yeah, a lot of improvement that hasn't directly benefited Arbor Xhekaj and also cut his ice time in a way, because now when you have Dobson and Hutson on your top two pairings, you can roll those both out for 22 to 24 minutes a night, and there's just not much ice left for the third pair, especially if like your other guy on the pair is Carrier. He's going to be playing PK. He's going to get some minutes there, but Xhekaj has not established himself as a penalty killer. So he's got to earn that ice. He's just got to earn the ice. Trinket says, Kiefer Sherwood is like a puppy. The cute stuff is cute and the bad stuff is bad. Yeah, stop chewing my shoes up, Kiefer. Am I crazy, or has Carrier been scoring at a considerably higher rate than he usually does? I believe since he was acquired last year, he was behind only Hutson in point production on the Canadiens. And yeah, 2 primary assists tonight. He's an underrated offensive contributor. And it's not like he has a big shot or anything. His big offensive contributions are usually keeping plays alive, deceptively good playmaking, and he opens ice up a lot by driving the net. Like, for a guy who's seen more as a defensive specialist, he drives the net a lot from the back end. Like, he's interesting. He's a very interesting player. I know a few people last year said that he was like a better Frankie Bouillon, and I see that as well. The way he takes a hit is very, very impressive. That was from Adam 7777, by the way. Trizak says a Struble Carrier pairing is pretty vanilla. Xhekaj Carrier has some spice. Yeah. I mean, Struble's no shrinking violet either, but Xhekaj is another level. Like, the physicality is just crazy. Trinka says, I love the Hutson Struble pairing. It's the perfect spear and shield defense pairing. Yeah, it works pretty well. I think that eventually you probably want a higher end partner for Lane Hutson. That might be David Reinmacher, So who knows? How are we feeling about Mike Matheson? Because I thought he was phenomenal tonight. I thought that he had one bad pass in the first period. It was like a bad clearing attempt that went right to a Vancouver Canuck in the slot. But overall, man, just a gamer this year. Rod Lewing Fan Club says, I like vanilla. Well, listen, it is kind of funny that vanilla is like the terminology for like milquetoast these days, when it wasn't that long ago that vanilla was like one of the most expensive things in the entire world, and it's still not cheap. Like, vanilla's delicious. Matheson's been great this year, says Piano Matt. I totally agree. Trizek says Gooley erasure. Yeah, I don't think Gooley is the long-term partner for Hutson, because I want to see Gooley on the left. I think as great as Matheson has been this year, and I've absolutely adored the guy, I kind of want to see him make big bank on his last like big contract in the NHL, just based on his age. And I don't think he'll be able to make that in Montreal. Like, there's just too much already spent on the defense and too many young players upcoming. And I just don't think long-term that the Canadiens want Gooley to play on his offside. He's good enough on his offside, but he's better on his strong side. And I think Gooley Dobson would be pretty damn good. Probably not as good as Matheson Dobson is right now, but it'd be a bit of a different flavor. Maybe a little bit less high flying, a little bit more Gooley destroys somebody. Brown Sonia, I want to see Hutson Dobson. I mean, going into the season, the talk was like that would be a defensive disaster, but all this talk about Dobson being bad defensively, he's had like one gaffe this season. It was a pretty bad gaffe, but dude has been unbelievable. I think they do run out Hudson Dobson sometimes when they're trailing late. But yeah, that the puck movement on those two is incredible. Although honestly, Matheson hasn't been like much of a downgrade from Hudson on that pair. Like I know he's not the point producer that Hudson is, but damn man, he is just having a season for the ages. Like what a renaissance man he is right now. Robert Wright says, I'm rooting for Matheson to do the best for himself, but I'm concerned if we lose him, we're taking a step back. Not convinced Reinbacher can make the leap until next year. Well, that's the thing is like probably you're looking at next year for Reinbacher anyway. And caveat, guys got to stay healthy. Like it's an issue. This is what, third year in a row where he started the season injured. That sucks. Part of it's bad luck for sure, but that just sucks. You got to figure it out. Moose, by splitting them, you get one of Hudson and Dobson on the ice for most of the game. Yeah, that's the best part, right? Rod Langway Fan Club says, Marty loves Matheson. I can't see him leaving. You know, if Matheson decides to forego the cash and sign with the Canadiens for a nice homer deal to stay home and live in his hometown, nobody'd be upset, right? You know, if he wants to take that financial hit, not that he wouldn't still be wealthy, I would have even more respect for him. Although I hope he gets the bag just because, like, why not? He should. He deserves it. He's been great. Piano Matt says, I agree that Matheson does better in a slightly diminished role. Yeah, I mean, the Peter principle, right? He's not a number one defenseman. But now that they have Hudson and Dobson, and he's really the number 3 defenseman on this team, he looks astonishingly good. And that's a perfect fit for him. It's excellent. And I hope he continues to have this amazing season because this is a new form of Mike Matheson. It's good Mike Matheson every night. Trizek says, if you sign Matheson, can you trade Gooley for a true 2C? Yeah, let's not tell Kay. That's not allowed to be said on this show. Maybe. I don't know. I think, honestly, this might also be verboten, but more likely than Gooley, because I think he's seen as a core piece here and like part of the leadership group. You might see David Reinbacher. You might see his name start popping up. I'm not saying that I've heard anything. I don't think that's coming down the line at all. But if they re-sign Matheson and, you know, they've got that really stocked defensive core, you have a position of strength that you can deal from. So Piano Matt says, screenshotting this and sending to K right now. All right, then we should end it before we get in too much trouble because we don't want to make K mad, right? So thanks for sharing this amazing night with me, folks. Montreal Canadiens win over the Vancouver Canucks in a game where they started off playing like shit, but ended up playing like gamers. The Montreal Canadiens are a very good team, and we're going to have some fun here on Game Over Montreal. We'll see you for the next one.